So you're all very welcome this morning to this delayed 50 Footballers book launch. We'll have to be out of here sharpish because we've almost got some serious shopping to do. And Jana has I think it's called a football match, but don't worry, this football malarkey will never catch on. So we've got four very well as my mum and Jana. We've got their special guests. So we've got four people to speak this morning. So, but before I do, I'll just show you the book if you haven't bought it already. Copies are available here for £10. We're doing a special limited edition book launch price, which you've guessed it is £10. So, so this is the book. On the front cover then is a 1 to 12. And for people that don't understand football, there's 12 people. Well, in the old days, there used to be 12 people in a team. One of them's a substitute. So these are the 12 in the front, and these will be the 12 that we'll be talking about. Going through them briefly after the more interesting people than me talk. But on the back, before I forget, I have to thank the sponsors. So again, there's 12 of those. So first name of the team sheet is of course my mum and dad, and then I've just realised I've forgotten to invite Norman here. Norman Reid, he's number 2. Number 5 is a good friend of mine, Ivan Toe, and then number 6 is Ken Belshaw, who Norman knows well. Number 3 is Jerry and Geraldine McCollum, who are big Man United fans, so that's why the Man United. But they're nice people despite that. That's why the kit there is red. Number 7 is a George Best super fan, Andrew Bowen. He's stayed at the George Best house 7 times in 18 months. So, and of course we are joined by the guy who's, as well as being joined by George Best's brother-in-law, we're joined by Arabella and Jim, who were staying in the George Best house last night. So anybody thinks that I've gone to the trouble or expense of getting Jim White from the Daily Telegraph to speak at this book launch is very much mistaken. He just happened to be staying in the George Best house last night. So then numbers 4 and 10 are sponsored by a Spurs fan. We are joined by other Spurs fans today. This is a guy called Joe Rice. And Ken Breaky is number 8. He's one of the tour guides at the National Stadium. If you haven't done the tour, I can recommend it. I did it for the first time last weekend. And Michael, is an excellent guide. I have to say that because his boss is sitting behind him. But he is genuinely excellent. Needed to pay him more, hint, hint. And then number 11 is McDowell is the name on the back of the shirt. So this is Frankie. This is in order of importance. Frankie and Robert, and so Frankie is a Crusaders fan. Yes. But Robert, he's the man with the money, so he's a Linfield fan. So he gets the casting vote. So that's why the Linfield shirt is there. Leave it, William. Don't hit him. And then the star striker, of course, is Jana, the Villa fan. So that's why it's not West Ham, Ulster. Sorry, it's an Aston Villa top. And then Joe Rice is in there again. And then Wesley Thompson, my long-suffering Dundonaldonian, he said that when I was looking for sponsors, he says, at my age, which I'll not tell you, but it was 74, I'm only fit for the substitutes bench. So he's down there as number 12. So thanks, Wesley, for your ongoing support. So those are the sponsors. So thanks again to you guys, and thanks again for coming along. So I'm going to ask each of the 4 guys to say a few words. So if Conrad would maybe come up first and say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the invite. I really appreciate it. As president, you get asked to do all kinds of different things that you wouldn't have done before. So it's a real pleasure. It was a real pleasure to be asked to do a foreword for the book. Could maybe do a shout out. I mean, Michael Cockroach there. What Peter has said about the tour of the National Football Stadium at Windsor Park, it is very worthwhile. I dropped in unexpectedly on Michael one day, and it took me a while to realise it was there. But I can attest to the fact I've done the tour 3 times now, and it is absolutely superb. They're all volunteers who do it.
Certainly better than any of my tours.
I should also say History Hub Ulster is one of those things that, it's mentioned, but it's one of those things that I sort of got into during lockdown. We're all trying to find interests and things that we can do down there, so it was really nice when Peter got in touch through his beloved Ards, and I got to know him a little through that. The book has already come in handy for me. I was at a quiz last night. I got invited to a golf club to speak. Why they wanted me to speak at a golf club, I'm not entirely sure, but I was invited, and there was a quiz beforehand, and I was struck. The question was, Northern Ireland player, born in 1928, played for Glentoran, ran a bar, played for Glasgow Celtic, and has a statue in his hometown. And it was in my head straight away. It was Bertie Peacock, because I'd been reading the book earlier in the week, so it was really, really helpful in that sense. But also there's other links in the book for me in terms of what I'm doing as president over the next wee while. Harry Gregg is there, and I'm visiting the Harry Gregg Foundation, Northern Ireland weather, got on the way before Christmas when I was due to go there, but I'm going after Christmas to visit the Harry Gregg Foundation on the North Coast, and there's loads of boys and girls getting to love the beautiful game up there as well, so that's another link that there is to what we're doing. The Ram McBride Stadium, the police and the Arts, even the Arts fans aren't going up there this afternoon for the game away to Institute, but again, named after someone in the book. The absolutely bitterly cold today. I'm not sure you're not going up yourself.
No.
There you go. It's too cold to go to Institute today. Lastly, George Best's brother-in-law is in the room. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
The question last night that was posed to the people at the quiz was around George Best's name on his birth certificate. And I was surprised to find out, obviously, I'm glad, I hope I'm right here, that he was recorded as Ronald Samuel Best on his birth certificate at the time. And for reasons that the family, I believe, currently don't know, it's lost with his parents. They changed it to George. So as I was driving here today, I was looking at the George Best International City Airport and thinking it really wouldn't have the same ring to it called the Ronald Samuel Best. It just doesn't work for me, but I think it's great. The book it's a delight to read. It's good to people that there's memories of. I did say in the foreword, I always get challenged as president to get out and about to the four corners of Northern Ireland. It's good that clearly you have, and I think in a year when women's football has also been prevalent and been very much in people's thinking, it's good that there are some significant figures in female football recorded in the book as well. So just I encourage you, £10 buy a copy. We do discounts on the tour of the National Stadium. There's plenty of you, but enjoy the morning and congratulations on the book.
Yes, it was remiss of me not to thank History Hub Ulster, so joined by the History Hub Ulster all-conquering president, chairman, Gavin Bamford, he's here today. So History Hub Ulster have kindly sponsored the ISBN in the book, and have done for previous books as well, so thank you again, Gavin. So I'll ask Jim White to, formerly of the Daily Telegraph before he came over to he's now going to, because he likes the George Best house so much, he's going to do the tours instead of me.
Thanks very much, Peter. Peter took Arabella and I up to Roselawn Cemetery yesterday to visit George Best's grave. Oh, sorry, I just pressed the microphone. And
out of the way. Sorry, just there. Out of the way. Sorry, trouble. Thank you. All right.
That's what this book is all about. It's about 50 famous or not so famous footballers from Northern Ireland and where they are buried. And what really struck me when I went to see George's grave was that there was nothing on the grave about. I was expecting to say George Best, 37 caps, 2 league titles, 1 European Cup, 3 Miss Worlds. There was nothing there. It was just it's his mum, his dad, and love from the family, and that kind of modesty is remarkable there. Given that you're in Roselawn Cemetery and just down the road from him, there's some Fred Bloggs who has all over his grave, 2nd Battalion Commander of the UVF, and you think, what did this man give to the world compared to that man? It's remarkable. But I was with Peter, fortunately, and we were able to talk about Bestie, and that's what this book does. It takes you to the grave, and so many of them are as modest as Bestie. And I've got a personal connection with one of the people in this book, Alan MacDonald, who he was, when I was doing coaching badges with the FA in England, he was my coach. He was teaching me how to become a football coach. And if you look at his grave, it just says, MacDonald, treasured memories of Alan, beloved husband and father, and his birthday and his death day. And there's so much more to Alan than that. What a fantastic guy he was. He was a brilliant coach of coaches. One of the things I'll always remember that he said to me, it was about kids, teaching kids, and he said to me, if you're in this game to win trophies with the kids, don't be in it. You're in it for them. And that stuck with me throughout all my coaching career. It wasn't very successful, I have to say. What a great man he was. But fortunately, I've now got this book, and it gives me the background of Alan, and it tells me what a great man he was, in a way that the grave doesn't. And that's why I'd recommend this. There are some amazing stories here of the famous, the not so famous. Every one of them is a remarkable man and a remarkable story. And I think we need to thank Peter for that and bringing it to all of our attention for just a tenner, for goodness sake.
Of course, Alan MacDonald, thanks Jim. Alan MacDonald is well known for the famous interview, Michael can keep me right here, that he did when Northern Ireland qualified for the '86 World Cup. And it was a nil-each draw against England at Wembley, and people were saying it's a fix, and but it enabled, I think, both sides to qualify for the World Cup. Yes. So Alan MacDonald, who wasn't the guy to be argued with, said something like, anybody wants to tell me this game was a fix, they can come down here and I'll tell them that, or something, he said. So you can take, you can, pardon? No, yeah, there's no takers, surprisingly. You can take the boy to Rathcoole, but you can't take the Rathcoole out of the boy. So he was, a fellow Rathcoolean, or another Rathcoolean at the back there. So another Rathcoolean that was, I amongst my many jobs for the partnership, is I occasionally cut the grass badly at the side near the mural. Or because you're in East Belfast, I was saying to Arabella and Jim yesterday, it's a mural if you're in East Belfast. So I was cutting the grass beside this mural, and normally if I see tourists stopping there, I would say, are there any guys here you don't recognise? Because there's a guy bottom right who's he's the guy who did the mural himself, D. Craig. So nobody gets that one. But anyway, before it basically just turned the lawnmower off, and then the woman said about the man, she said, my husband here, said, pointing at this man, has scored more international goals for Northern Ireland than George Best. So I looked at this guy and thought, oh, I'm not sure that was yesterday that happened. So I said, you're going to have to give me a clue here. When you did that, when you scored all those goals, who were you playing for? And he said, Reading and Swindon. And I said, you're Jimmy Quinn. So Jimmy Quinn's another Rathcoole man. And he famously scored, didn't he? Michael, you keep me right. He scored the goal that took Northern Ireland through the '85 World Cup final. And he talked, I had to pick Jana up, and I was thinking, I need to go here. And I was thinking, this is role reversal. Normally it's me stalking celebrities, but he wouldn't let me go and pick up Jana. So, but he was telling stories about how in that was it was an away game against Romania, and Romania had Hadji in the team. Northern Ireland apparently only ever went into the Romanian half once, and Jimmy Quinn scored the goal. It was more or less that was how bad it was, but came away with a win. It was Jimmy Quinn that scored that famous goal. And of course, I'm not a huge Northern Ireland fan, sorry Conrad, but I don't support any other international team, sorry. But especially England, Jim. But completely lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah, so of course with Northern Ireland, of course, we don't have only one Jimmy Quinn, we have two Jimmy Quinns. So there was Jimmy Quinn came along afterwards. Is there a chant about him? Oh, I thought it was, there's only two Jimmy Quinns or something like that. No. He's tall, he's thin, he's Jimmy Quinn, is that it? Right. That could apply to both, but maybe I haven't seen the original Jimmy Quinn. Maybe you couldn't apply that to him now. But we're all the same boat, sir. So I'll ask, we're doing these in reverse order of importance. keeping the best to last. So no offence again, guys, because I have to speak to this guy every fortnight. So I'll ask. I'm going to ask for discount in the programmes next. I'm not joking. So I'm going to ask Michael Cockcroft from the Northern Ireland Football Museum to say a few words. So as Conrad has already said, there's 2 forwards. There had to be at least 2 forwards in a book about football. A different spelling of forward. And so Conrad kindly did one, and Michael did the other. So Michael was a great help in terms of helping me access the details of some of the people that feature in the book. So, for example, the first entry in the book was something I'd never heard of. Are you going to talk about him now?
Alex Crawford, yes.
Oh yes, we are.
Indeed,
So
indeed.
I'll not steal Michael's thunder.
Indeed. Just before we start, so Alan McDonald, that Romania match was actually Alan McDonald's first cap. So the England match was only his second cap, and I mean it meant a lot to. I mean, I know looking back, when you think about it, anybody thinks it's a quick come to see me, but it was only his second cap, very young, and he could have. I mean, he played well. He played brilliant in Romania. That's why he held his place against England, and but he could have been took all the limelight and had said, you must be feel so proud being a hero. It says not just me, a hero. With 11, 12, 13 heroes out there, so it just, you seen what he was like as a man straight away, and say everybody from then on everybody loved him. He was a national treasure straight away. So, but to Michael Cockcroft, I I'm a tour guide at the National Football Stadium at Windsor Park. To give it its full title, even it's a bit controversial. But so anybody, just a wee plug for it too. Anybody who likes basically old, new, whatever, you'll back into the delve into the history, but also you see the brand new ground and get around to the likes of the George Best Suite and places where in the changing rooms, places where the normal public don't get to. So $8.50 for 2 hours, you couldn't beat it. And if you're a wee bit older, you get a concession as well. So
I'm not sure why you're looking that direction.
Oh, you wouldn't start around. So no, and as well, or any sort of church group, youth groups, whatever. It really is well worth it. Although I'm a wee bit biased. So say I'm a memorabilia collector myself for my sins, and that's sort of how I got on to helping with the book a bit. So I do a Facebook page, Northern Ireland Football Museum, if you want to follow it, and just basically every day it'll be something on this day. So a lot of the real old stuff, I was fascinated by the players and doing a lot of research, and so a lot of players from back in the day maybe scored 2 or 3 goals and then all of a sudden disappeared, and you wondered how were they dropped or what happened. But then when you look into it, unbelievably, quite a lot of them had died very early. So I mean, there was Willie Sherrard and Bob Morrison, who most Glentoran people would know. Ching Morrison, very famous name for the Glens, Ching Morrison.
Featured in the book.
But his brother was actually probably a better footballer. He 1890-91, Linfield won the league title for the first time. They won the cup double. He was their main man, Bob Morrison. Because of that, he got playing for Ireland, and later that year he died at 21. Just so crazy. So I'd actually done a wee bit of research, and he's buried in Ching's grave, which is covered. But the next fella, Alex Crawford, I actually got what's it brought with me. His Irish Cup. It actually came from America, believe it or not. But it's Alex Crawford's Irish Cup winners medal with Distillery in 1889. So I've done a bit of research to try and find out about him, and again, on first look, I was sort of so in awe of him. He won. I mean, Distillery were the team. They're not like on their knees at the minute, but back then they were the team, the Whites. So he was captain of Ireland from the early 20s, and his father.
Michael, that shirt's loud enough. You don't need to.
I'm trying to advertise the book on the front of it. So, his father was president of Distillery. He was a judge, very wealthy businessman, And in fact, his house was, which I'm trying to get a photo of if anybody knows, Foxfield House on the Craiger Road, opposite Harding Memorial, where the cancer research is now, and the Red Rooster would have been back in the day. That used to be a big fancy house, apparently Foxfield House. So the Crawfords owned it, and so I mean, he had absolutely everything going for him. I'm only 27. He passed away with the flu, you know. So very, very sad. So it sort of took me, and I wanted to find out about his grave, and but I didn't think it was a big thing with grave searching and stuff. So I done a bit of research, realised it was a city cemetery, but we couldn't find it with records or whatever. So I actually sent Peter just a message, would you have any chance of helping me find this grave? But I mean, unbelievably, which I've written about, within 20 minutes he was back with the photo of the grave, and so I was well pleased, and it was really badly overgrown. It was in terrible state. Obviously nobody has been there in years, and so about half an hour later Peter sent me another one with it all cleaned up and all the pretty nice. Can you do that? Like usually, you know, there's...
I wonder why I'm single, Michael.
But there's graves I've seen in their terrible state, and you'd love to sort of tidy them up, but I didn't know whether you needed sort of, I mean, it's obviously somebody else's or family permission or whatever, but it said that to Peter, and he says, I just kept on. You know, nobody else has been near. So that from that there day then, he'd said I'd never heard of Alex Crawford, and we swapped stories back and forward, and then say every day it was nearly, you know, about this fella here, or a photo of this, and it was great. So say it ended up, there must have been near 60, but you had to cut down to 250. So there's definitely about 2 on the off, and I would say. A few looks of horror. Yes, indeed. So if you get your pre-orders, that'll maybe only be a 10 as well. But so no, that was how I got involved, and so that's basically it's. You see, today's heroes. I mean, it's hard to believe that these were heroes of the day. A lot of these people, especially the real old ones, you know, and they died like penniless, and the graves aren't looked after. So it's just great the way that they're looked after now, you know. So, and the other thing, every day is a learning day. So because I didn't know about George Best. What's his? Ronald Samuel. So that's one thing I've learned today. So again, everything's a learning day. So just wish Peter all the best with the book. Okay.
And then the grand finale, or as I say in France, the grand finale, is Adrian Monaghan. So Adrian and Jan and I and Stuart are long-suffering Ards fans. So I didn't want to make the book as I didn't want to make it, you know, full of the big two. And of course, when I say the big two, I mean Ards and Bangor. So I didn't. I think I put one Bangor player in it. I think it's Sammy Moore as an SS Moores. So many of you remember the sports shop. So he's buried in Knockbreda Cemetery. So he played for Bangor. He was a goalkeeper, I think, for Bangor for many years. But I think he was also an Ards director for a while. So he went from the dark side. He saw the light. So there are 3 Ards players in it. There's also other Ards players with a connection to Ards. So sadly there's Jerry Thompson, Bertie McMinn, and then 3 others. So Adrian's going to say a few words about well, I don't know what you're going to say. Adrian.
Positioning right here. We'll do the quick advertising first.
Nice job, right? Oh, it's not so nice now. I just started perfect.
Okay, folks. Thanks for the invite. The opportunity to say a few words. And on the book itself, absolutely tremendous. Really enjoyed reading it. And what sort of grabbed me as well was the diversity. You know, it wasn't, as you said, you wanted to keep away from the, you know, it would have been very easy to fill it with internationals, northern, you know, Belfast folks, you know, Glentoran. So So I was very impressed at your diversity of it and going all around the country, all visiting different places. The diversity was great, as I say, and then of course there was, nobody's mentioned it, there was a couple of women involved in it as well. Molly Seaton, am I right in saying?
Yeah. Dandy's answer to George Best, yeah.
There you go. And I believe the mother of the Blanchflowers. So I thought that was very clever as well, and that made it very, lot more interesting. Of course, you know, the book itself, when you picking 50 must have been difficult. And that was probably the hardest part of it, and I'm sure Michael help you. But of course, you had George Best in it, that's everybody would have been aware of. And another legend, Charlie Tully. And of course, Charlie was a real character, very quick-witted. Charlie played for Glasgow Celtic, or for Belfast Celtic. When his career finished, he played around a bit, playing for different football clubs. And he, before I get the witty remark, he also managed Owen and he managed Bangor for a brief period.
Sorry to hear that.
And I'm right in saying this, 1970 Bangor won their first trophy. It was the County Antrim Shield. They won the County Antrim Shield and they beat Ards in the final. And a Bangor supporter came up to him after the game and says, "Mr. Tully, that's fantastic." He says, "Does that get us into Europe?" He says, "Son, it doesn't even get us into County Antrim." So people like that, of course. And then the other end of it was the players that you featured that died young, and we've already touched on quite a few of them. We've talked about Jerry Thompson, who had the Ards connection, Adrian Doherty, who's on the cover, Ryan McBride. From the Ards perspective, there was a young player who was only 27, Andy Bothwell, in the 20s. Andy was the first Ards player to gain an international cap. Crazy thing about it was, like I heard Michael saying that somebody died from influenza. You know, he died from the burst appendix that a couple of years later, penicillin would have cured, just born too soon. But you know, the main thing that we have, you know, Jana Stewart's here today too, you know, myself is the Ards FC. So we're long suffering, but we have a great outlook in life. We have a great optimism. We always think tomorrow's going to be a better day and everything. And
it's normally not.
And it's normally not, no. But I know Stewarty actually went to watch Ards play in Belgium and Holland, isn't that right?
Yep.
And there's a story used to do the rounds around Newton Ards about a couple of Ards supporters went to the PSV Eindhoven match. They played PSV Eindhoven in 1874. Now Stewarty was here, and Stewarty's not one of the people I'm talking about in this story. But this came back to me one time. These guys went over from Ards, made their way over to the match. And they, of course, they got over early, and they were having a few drinks before the match. And of course, coming from Northern Ireland, the Dutch guys were fascinated. You know, troubles in Northern Ireland were raging at the time. It's like living in Northern Ireland. And we got in the company, and of course, the Dutch all speak great English, so it was going well. And they were chatting away, and they went from bar to bar and had a few drinks. And next thing, they looked at the watch, and it was nearly half time. Come the whole way over to Holland. We're not going to see this match. So they eventually, they were close to the ground, thankfully, so they got in about 15 minutes into the second half, and they took their seat in the stand and sat down, and Dutch fella sitting in front of him, he tapped him on the shoulder, and he says, "What's the score?" He says, 7-0. He says, "Who to?" That's the spirit of an Ards supporter. To say brevity's the soul of it, so I'm going to be brief and just conclude by thanking you again and recommend the book. Another fantastic achievement. Well done, Peter. And here's for the next 50.
So, most book launches, the author, I don't like using that word, I'm much more comfortable with anorak. The anorak plugs his own book, but I'm going to be a bit different. I'm going to plug 3 other books. So the first one I'm going to plug is one of Adrian's books, and it's the Ford Trophy season. Ards haven't had a good team since 1974, so Adrian has plenty of time to write this book about it. So it's called the Ford Trophy season. It's hard for me as an Ards fan to think, and even worse for Jana, to think that Ards actually won 4 trophies in one season. They haven't won 4 trophies in the entire time since. So you have a number of books. That's only one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, 30 memorable matches.
30 memorable matches, yeah. It doesn't include last week's disgraceful performance against Institute. 2-0 up after. What?
Missed the colour.
Yeah. 2-0 up after 10 minutes and losing 5-3. You're quoted in this, aren't you? Your story is in this?
It's either that one or the other one.
The other one is it's that one?
Yeah, it's the Liège trip, sure.
Yeah.
So Stuart's European adventures to Liège are mentioned in this one. As Adrian said, he wasn't the one that said who to. This is one of the world's heaviest books. This is Jim White's, one of Jim White's books. It's called Premier League: A History in 10 Matches. So that's worth checking out for sure. And then we'll be joined by Barry Flynn as well on his way to the mighty Duns. We've also been joined by Hugh, also on his way to the Duns, and I might go to the Duns as well. And one of the things that Arabella and Jim were caught with was yesterday we went to Dundela, we went to the pitch, and I think Jim predicted he was fascinated by the slope. There's a photograph of him just going. It's character. It's certainly a lot of character. So the game today is against league leaders, Anna, the Anna, and they're from the Portadown area, as is Alistair. He's from the metropolis of Tartlachen. The last big I'll plug.
That's the pub is gets all the awards.
What's that?
That's where the wee pub is that gets all the awards.
No, that's Tartarin.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry.
Tartarin is a metropolis compared to
Different elementary mistake.
Yeah,
Different tart.
And the last book I'll plug is one of Barry Flynn's books. So Barry Flynn's here on his way to the Duns from the BBC. He was a great help to Jana in her early days at the BBC, and hopefully will continue to be. It's not too much pressure. And this book is about legends of Irish boxing. So it's one of Barry's. Have you a number of books? 11? Oh, here I bow to your reverence. But I am non-prolific compared to you then. But this is the only one that I picked up in the charity shop. So I'll rattle through the 11 then. Sorry, the 12 on the screen. And what do I like for time? I'll very quickly. You're suffering will end soon, Mum. I'll just detail. No, I've got a clicker here. I'll just detail the 12. So that's the front cover. So the first one is Harry Gray. So he's buried in Coleraine Cemetery. Of course, the sun comes out at the wrong time. So I don't need any introduction about Harry Gray, but apart from saying about the Munich air crash, he was a hero as a result of his behaviour during following the Munich air crash. And then, as Conrad said, there's a foundation named after him to help with youth football, particularly in the County Londonderry area. Second one is Paddy McCann. So a good friend of mine, Sam Robinson, who's written a number of books about Glentoran, and he did recently the thing about a play of another friend of mine called Trevor Gill, called One Saturday Before the War. So Paddy McCann was one of the guys mentioned in that. The Glens captain from a nationalist background, but a complete Glens legend, and he's buried in Bangor Cemetery. Number 3 is left back, so that's Bertie Fulton, again a Belfast Celtic legend, and he's buried in Larne. So Justin and I had the great honour of being traipsing around Larne Cemetery trying to find Bertie Fulton's grave. But Bertie Fulton was, as well as a good player, he was also the wingman for the legendary Belfast Celtic manager Elisha Scott. But Bertie was the brains behind the operation to a degree. And the fourth one, Ken Bricky told me about this guy. He played for some team that playing blue. Their name will never pass my lips. But it sounds a bit like Binfield. Johnny Darling, so he's buried in Dundonald Cemetery. Of course, being a Linfield player, am I doing this or is it doing it itself? Being a
Okay, hold on, I got it.
being a Linfield player, of course, he was from this neck of the woods, so he ran the confectioner's shop on the junction of New Carriage Road and D Street. So where the post office is now, that was Johnny Darling's place. So people like Sam Robinson, he used to be warned off of going into Johnny Darling's shop because he was a Linfield, he'd been a Linfield player. So, and even worse than that, he was from East Belfast originally. The next one then is Ryan McBride. As Conrad mentioned about Ryan McBride, and yes, about Ards playing at the Ryan McBride Stadium this afternoon. This afternoon Ards will lose to Institute, and that's in but as long as Christopher Crane's not playing, I'm happy. So that's named after Ryan McBride, the Brandywell, so Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium, and he was 27, I think, when he passed away unexpectedly, less than 24 hours after a victory for Derry City against I can't remember, was it Waterford or something like that. So Jan and I have a passing interest, or no, have a keen interest in Derry. We go up to the Derry City games quite a bit. It's mainly so that Jan can go to the charity shops, because for whatever reason they're better up in Derry than they are in Belfast. And of course then we got a couple of tickets for the FAI Cup final about 4 months ago, and then the BBC asked Jan to work at it, so there she was up in the gods, up in the corporate area, like, you know, smoking a cigar and filing their nails, and I'm down with the plebs. But great experience being down with the plebs. The next one, Michael's talked about Alan MacDonald. People often forget about his time at Glentoran. He died relatively young. He dropped dead in the golf course, and he's buried in Killaney, which is between Carryduff and St. Fool. I think, Michael, you told me that. Yes, so thanks to Michael for telling me where that location, where his burial location was. George Best doesn't need any introduction, or as was suggested, it sounds much better than Ronald Samuel. Of course, you have a brother called Ronald, so Ronald's not a bad name. But it's not as nice as George. Then Wilbur Cush. There's quite a lot of people said, I want to sponsor number 8 because it's Wilbur Cush. So Wilbur Cush was a popular one to mention, to feature. He's buried in Lurgan Cemetery, same as Jimmy Jones. I told you I wasn't doing it. And so Evan Marshall was here, but he hasn't got out of his bed, clearly. So he's done an excellent book about the Northern Ireland 58 World Cup squad. So Wilbur Cush was certainly a mainstay to that. I think he scored in that campaign as well, and he was a stocky fella, but he kind of played centre half. That means at the back, the defender. Don't worry, it's football malarkeys, you know. It never worked. The next one then is also in Lurgan Cemetery. This is Jimmy Jones. So Jimmy Jones was famously playing for Belfast Celtic in that match at Windsor Park. That was actually Belfast Celtic's last competitive domestic game, where he was essentially assaulted by so-called Linfield supporters, and they kind of shattered his leg. But he did thankfully come back. But Belfast Celtic had folded as a result of well, that was the culmination of their problems. But he did come back, and he played for Glenavon for many years, and he scored like literally hundreds of goals for Glenavon. So if he wasn't dead, I would be asking him to play up front for hours, even at
give us a try.
Give us a try, yes. Got a lot of movement up the front. So then number 10 then, your suffering's nearly ended. Is Charlie Tully. He's buried in Milltown Roman Catholic Cemetery. So if anybody has particular difficulty in sleeping, I have a YouTube channel, as I mentioned earlier. Justin does a great job with it, both filming and pulling a lot of the. My daughter gave me a big yawn in the front row, not even covering her mouth. So if you've any trouble sleeping, just log on to Peter McCabe's Memorable Memorials, and you'll start listening, and you'll be over in a couple of minutes. But Charlie Tully is one of the graves that Justin and I visited, and we'll talk about him. He's both a Belfast Celtic, as you heard earlier from Adrian, and Glasgow Celtic legend, Cheeky Charlie. And the last one on the team sheet, on the starting 11 is Adrian Doherty. So if anybody hasn't bought the book about Adrian Doherty, I bought it in a charity shop in Derry, 3 for £1. It was a tremendous bargain. But it's by Oliver Kay. He's a sports. He's an award, a bit like Jim. He's an award-winning sports journalist, and he's written a book about Adrian Doherty. Adrian Doherty was better than Ryan Wilson as he was in those days, but now then Ryan Giggs. Well, maybe we're not supposed to talk about Ryan Giggs anymore. And just before he was about to get into the Man United, excuse my strong language here, Man United make his debut for the first team, he got a cruciate ligament injury, and that was curtains back in those days. He tried to come back and played a few games for Derry City, but it didn't really work for him. So then he got into music, and he ended up working in a factory in Holland, and he was found floating in the canal one morning. So it was an accident. It wasn't suicide, but it's a very, very sad story about Adrian Doherty, and he's buried up in Strabane, his hometown. So to finish with Wesley Thompson's position, substitute, then is Bertie Peacock. So he's buried up in Coleraine, and of course there's the statue up outside Bishop's. For anybody that might have daughters, will be familiar with Bishop's shoe shop. So that's expensive, yes. But that's Bishop's, not daughters. Although the two are expensive. So that's Bertie Peacock. Again, there's a youth cup in Bertie's memory. So your suffering is now ended. Thanks very much for coming along. As I say, I'll be here until kick-off at the Duns. I'm going to go to Duns today, which is 3 o'clock. Although not, I have to go over to George's Best House. The books are £10, and say The Perfect Cure for Insomnia, and I can sign them for you. So thanks very much, everybody, for coming along. Oh yes, that's true. Well, Peter Forbes here has requested that his copy be signed, but by Jana, because he reckons it's going to be worth more money in the future.